Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat, and I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be doing my weekly wrap-up for the week ending Saturday, November 22nd. The first book that I finished this week was John Irving's The Cider House Rules. We have a large group that is reading and discussing this novel in a Voxer chat, and we will still be talking about the book for another week. We're going to be talking about it through the end of November. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the novel. It is certainly one of John Irving's great novels. I think that my favorite still remains A Prayer for Owen Meany, which was one of his novels that I used to teach. But I think upon rereading this novel, The Cider House Rules, I think I can safely say that this is my second favorite of his novels that I've read so far. We will be starting his newest novel, Queen Esther, which just came out this month. We will be reading this during the month of December. One of the things that really struck me about this reread of The Cider House Rules that I probably didn't pay as much attention to when I first read it 40 years ago is just how deeply John Irving was influenced in his writing by Charles Dickens. This is definitely a 20th century novel. The action of the novel spans many decades before World War II, during World War II, post-World War II, right into the 1950s. But Irving uses many conventions of the 19th century novel in this book. And the works of Charles Dickens also figure very prominently in this novel as well. Another thing that has really struck me on rereading this book 40 years after it was originally published is just how profoundly concerned Irving was, and I believe still is, in women's rights. A major issue in this novel. And this novel takes place during a time when abortion was illegal everywhere. He is very concerned in this book about a woman's right to have control over her own body. And it was a little bit frightening to reread this book now, 40 years later, in 2025. And to think about these issues that he was writing about 40 years ago, to think about them now in our current political climate. As I said, we're going to be talking about the book for another week, so I'm not going to say anything more about the plot at this time while the group is still reading and talking about it. I have also finished this week my real life in-person book group's choice for this month, and that is Florence Knapp's debut novel, The Names. We are meeting on December 1st to talk about this novel, so I'm not going to do a full review of it now, but I will certainly do so after my group has had a chance to meet and talk about it. I will just say that I did find this to be a really beautifully written novel. It tells the story of a family, Cora, her husband Gordon, and their two children, a daughter named Maya and a newborn son when the novel first opens. What the novel does is it gives us three different possible storylines. We follow three versions of this family's life, each one very different. And each one is profoundly affected by the decision that Cora makes as to what name she gives her son when she goes to register the boy's birth. One storyline follows the life of the family where Cora registers the baby's name as Gordon, naming him after his father. The other two storylines follow the life of the family. If she were to name the baby according to a name that she chooses, and another storyline would be naming the baby according to a choice of the little girl, of his older sister. The structure of the novel and these three different paths that the family's life could take was really fascinating. I thought the prose of the novel was absolutely beautiful. But this is a novel about domestic violence, and that made it a very difficult read. The husband, Gordon, is a highly regarded physician. Everyone in his public life thinks the world of him. He's a very highly respected doctor, but he is an absolute monster, a controlling and violent man in his home. There were times that I was actually filled with a sense of dread just at the thought of picking this book up again. As much as I found the prose to be really beautiful, and I was fully engaged in the life, or the lives really, of this family, his violence and his cruelty were so disturbing to me that there were times when I would read anything but this book, just because I found him to be so monstrous. I am anxious to discuss this book with my friends in my book group, and I will review the book properly after we've had a chance to talk about it. So is it any wonder then that I am retreating every night to read a little bit more in Travis Baldree's newest novel, Brigands and Breadknives. I am continuing to read just a little bit of this book each night before I go to sleep. It's exactly what I need to do, especially after some of the other things I've been reading. Other than that, I've been continuing to work my way through this little book by J. Parini, Why Poetry Matters. This is also a book from which I am drawing real comfort and inspiration as well. Jay Parini is an English professor at my alma mater, Middlebury College in Vermont. Where I am now in this book, he is talking about how all of the great poets are in conversation with one another. He writes, "Poetry is indeed a conversation, an ongoing and expansive discussion along certain lines. The whole point about literary conventions is that certain measures have already been established, and new poets have a place to begin. They accept or reject certain norms. They do their own versions of certain poems. They pay homage to their precursors, or they reinvent them for their own purposes." He goes on, "Poetry is a conversation, and poets enter into the discussion wherever they are. They sometimes contend boldly, even aggressively, with earlier poets, misreading them willfully. Often they merely accept the precursor as a beloved inspiration and continue to work a vein opened by that poet. There is a sense of lively dialogue in poetry, which rarely exists independent of an earlier work. The tradition is a living organism. And he goes on to argue that poetry at its best can also feel like a kind of scripture. He says it represents the inspired language of generations, language that helps us to live our lives by directing us along certain paths. And then he goes into a discussion of some of the poets and some of their poems that have served as a real inspiration in his life. And some of them are poems that have had a similar role in my life as well. And he writes about how they have helped him to live his life. So it really is a great comfort read and a very inspirational one as well. This week, I'm going to be picking out my ghost stories that I will be reading for the Ghost of Christmas Past reading event, which I have been honored to be asked to be a co-host in. And I'm going to be looking through Charles Dickens' complete ghost stories. This is one, and another one that I'm going to spend some time with this week just to pick out some of my stories. Ghost Stories for Christmas, Volume 1. I have a whole bunch of ghost story books, anthologies, but I'm going to start with these two, and hopefully this week make a plan for December. I'm probably also going to be starting John Irving's new novel, Queen Esther, a little bit early because I'm done with the Cider House rules. So I might just get a jump on Queen Esther, but we'll have a schedule for that as well. This was a very productive week for me. I felt I made 5 videos. I did Suey's celebrating the big 6-0 tag in honor of Suey at Suey's Book Banter in honor of her 60th birthday. I did my friend Hannah's tag, reading shifts tag, which was really a discussion of our reading and how our reading has changed or evolved over time. And I thought that was a really thought-provoking set of prompts as well. I did a Poetry Thursday video on the poetry of Arthur Z., who was recently named the new U.S. Poet Laureate. I did episode 17 in my series on books I loved to teach, and I spoke about teaching Charles Frazier's novel, Cold Mountain. And now this wrap up. This is my 5th video of the week. So that feels pretty productive. So as always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.